Have you ever felt like you're pouring your heart into a relationship only to be met with silence, distance, or half-hearted affection? It's like reaching for a hand that never fully reaches back. And yet, the more unavailable they become, the more you find yourself clinging to the hope that they'll finally see your worth. But here's the uncomfortable truth. What if the real question isn't why they won't love you fully, but why you keep waiting for them to? Carl Jung believed that our relationships act as mirrors, reflecting the hidden parts of ourselves that we refuse to confront. If you're stuck in the exhausting cycle of chasing someone who avoids intimacy, it's not just about them, it's about something deeper inside you. Are you chasing love, or are you chasing validation? Is it about connection, or is it about proving that you are enough? Throughout history, philosophers and spiritual leaders have warned us about the dangers of attaching our self-worth to external forces. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, taught that love should be rooted in mutual respect, not in self-sacrifice. Søren Kierkegaard described the agony of existential despair, the feeling that if we let go of someone, we will lose a part of ourselves. But what if detachment is not about loss, but about self-reclamation? The pain of loving an avoidant partner doesn't just come from their distance, it comes from what that distance triggers within you. Joseph Murphy, in his work on the subconscious mind, explains that we attract experiences that align with our deepest, often hidden beliefs. If deep down you believe that love is something you must earn, you will be drawn to relationships that reinforce that narrative. Bob Proctor, known for his insights into mindset and self-worth, emphasized that what we accept is what we receive. If you keep tolerating inconsistency, you'll keep receiving it. Neville Goddard taught that our imagination shapes our reality. If your inner dialogue is filled with thoughts like, "If only they would change, then I could be happy," you're unknowingly manifesting a reality where your happiness is always just out of reach. Noam Chomsky, though more grounded in logic, pointed out that emotional reasoning often blinds us to simple truths. And the truth is this: love is not meant to be an endless test of your worth. In the Book of Not Knowing, Peter Ralston challenges us to question everything we assume about ourselves, including our need for external validation. He argues that true freedom comes when we stop trying to control what cannot be controlled. What if the key to love isn't holding on, but releasing the belief that love must be earned? The cycle of chasing and retreating will not end with them finally changing. It ends when you stop chasing. And that's where true transformation begins. The unseen battle between attachment and avoidance. Have you ever wondered why certain relationships seem to pull you in, no matter how painful they are? Why does it feel nearly impossible to walk away from someone who keeps their heart just out of reach? The answer isn't just emotional, it's psychological, spiritual, and deeply rooted in the way we perceive love itself. Avoidant partners operate on an unspoken rule. They crave connection but fear intimacy. The moment you step closer, they retreat. And when you finally pull away, they return, just close enough to keep you hooked but never fully present. It's a cruel paradox. The more love you offer, the more distant they become. And yet, you stay, believing that if you can just love them enough, they'll finally feel safe enough to stay. Carl Jung would call this a projection of the shadow self. If you are drawn to someone who keeps you emotionally starving, there's a part of you that believes you must prove your worth to be loved. The ancient philosophers understood this dance of attachment and avoidance long before modern psychology named it. The Buddha warned that suffering arises from clinging, whether to people, outcomes, or even our own self-image. Søren Kierkegaard described the human tendency to fear both intimacy and solitude, trapped in an in-between state where we neither fully connect nor fully let go. And yet, The world tells us that love is about persistence, that if we just try harder, communicate better, or become more patient, we can break through someone's walls. But what if that belief is the very thing keeping us stuck? Bob Proctor, who explored the power of thought and attraction, emphasized that our reality is shaped by what we accept. If you accept love on an inconsistent, conditional basis, that is exactly what you will continue to receive. Joseph Murphy, who studied the subconscious mind, argued that our earliest experiences with love shape our patterns in adulthood. If love once felt like something that had to be earned through being good enough, patient enough, or self-sacrificing enough, you will unconsciously repeat that pattern in your relationships. Neville Goddard believed that imagination creates reality. If you constantly replay a story in your mind where your happiness depends on someone else changing, you're trapping yourself in an endless loop. Noam Chomsky, though known for his work in linguistics, pointed out that our beliefs shape how we interpret reality. If your core belief is that love must be struggled for, then even when true love presents itself, you may not recognize it. In the Book of Not Knowing, Peter Ralston challenges the very concept of control. He argues that much of human suffering comes from trying to force reality into our expectations. And isn't that what we do in these relationships? We cling to an idealized version of the person, hoping that one day they will meet us where we are. But what if true love isn't about convincing someone to stay? What if real love is about freeing yourself from the need to be chosen? The painful truth is this: an avoidant partner does not fear love. They fear the loss of control that comes with intimacy. And if you are caught in this cycle, it may be time to ask yourself, are you truly in love with them, or are you in love with the idea of proving your worth? Reclaiming the self you lost in the process. Have you noticed how, in the pursuit of someone who keeps their heart just out of reach, you start to lose pieces of yourself? Your boundaries blur, your self-worth shrinks. The person you once were, confident, joyful, full of dreams, becomes someone constantly second-guessing, waiting, hoping. The irony is that while you are desperate to be chosen, you end up abandoning yourself in the process. This is where true detachment begins. Not in anger, not in resentment, but in the quiet realization that the greatest loss isn't losing them, it's losing yourself. Cornel West once said that love without truth is mere sentimentality, and truth without love is cruelty. Many of us stay in unfulfilling relationships under the illusion that love alone is enough. But love without self-respect, without mutual effort, without reciprocity, is it truly love? Or is it just an attachment to the idea of love? Sam Harris, who explores the intersection of mindfulness and rationality, suggests that suffering is often self-inflicted through the narratives we create. If you tell yourself that you need this person to feel whole, your mind will resist the reality that they are hurting you. You will look for excuses, rationalizations, anything to avoid the pain of acknowledging that you are giving more than you are receiving. Judith Butler, in her work on identity, argues that we often perform roles in relationships, playing the part of the patient lover, the fixer, the one who understands. But at what cost? When you play a role for too long, you forget who you were before the performance began. Michael Sandel, a philosopher on justice, would ask, is it just to give endlessly to someone who refuses to meet you halfway? If you were advising a friend in your position, would you tell them to stay? Deepak Chopra teaches that healing comes when we align our mind, body, and spirit. If your relationship is filled with anxiety, if your mind is consumed with worry, if your heart aches more than it feels joy, this is a sign that you are out of alignment. Eckhart Tolle reminds us that suffering is often the result of resisting the present moment. What happens when you stop chasing, stop resisting, and simply accept things as they are. Brené Brown, known for her work on vulnerability, reminds us that boundaries are the most loving thing we can give ourselves. And here's a hard truth. Sometimes detachment isn't about giving up on love. It's about refusing to participate in a dynamic that requires you to shrink yourself in order to keep it. In the book of Not Knowing, Peter Ralston speaks about embracing uncertainty. We often stay in painful relationships because we fear what will happen if we leave. But what if uncertainty isn't something to fear? What if, instead of seeing it as emptiness, we see it as possibility? What if the life waiting for you beyond this heartbreak is far greater than the one you are clinging to? You're not here to be someone's second choice. You're not here to convince someone to love you fully. You're here to reclaim the self you lost. And that begins the moment you stop chasing. The illusion of conditional love. Why does love sometimes feel like a test you're constantly failing? Why does it seem like no matter how much you give, it's never quite enough? If you've ever loved an avoidant partner, you've likely found yourself trying to meet some invisible standard, waiting for the moment when your patience, your kindness, your unwavering devotion will finally be rewarded. But what if love that must be earned isn't love at all? Marianne Williamson describes love as something that flows freely. It is not something we extract from others through effort. And yet, when you're caught in the grip of an avoidant relationship, love begins to feel transactional. You tell yourself, if I just do this right, if I just become better, if I just wait a little longer, maybe then they will love me the way I need to be loved. But this is the greatest illusion, because love, real love, does not operate on conditions. Alan Watts, the great philosopher of presence and impermanence, reminds us that clinging is what creates suffering. The more we try to hold on to something that resists being held, the more pain we create for ourselves. Love is not meant to be a game of endurance. It is not meant to be a negotiation. If someone's affection fluctuates based on how much you prove yourself, then it isn't love. It's control. Yuval Noah Harari, who explores human history and psychology, suggests that attachment styles are often shaped by the evolution of human survival. We are wired to seek security, but modern relationships have distorted this instinct. Instead of security, we seek validation. Instead of connection, we chase an idea of love that was never fully real to begin with. Socrates believed that wisdom begins with questioning. So ask yourself, if you have to constantly prove your worth to be loved, is that really the love you deserve? Aristotle spoke of eudaimonia, the flourishing of the soul. A love that drains you, that leaves you in a constant state of uncertainty, does not lead to flourishing. Pythagoras, who saw harmony in all things, would argue that love should not be an equation you must solve, but a balance that feels natural. Marcus Aurelius, the great Stoic, teaches that our peace should not be dependent on external forces. If your self-worth is tied to someone else's inconsistent affection, then you have placed your happiness in hands that will never hold it with care. In the book of Not Knowing, Peter Ralston speaks of illusion. How much of what we believe to be true is simply a story we have created? The belief that if we just try hard enough, we can make someone love us is one of the greatest illusions of all. Love should not be an uphill battle. If you are constantly proving yourself, then the real question is, why do you believe you have to? Detaching is not about giving up on love. It's about refusing to settle for something that only exists when it's convenient for someone else. It's about recognizing that the version of love you are fighting for may not be love at all. Bridging ancient wisdom and modern insights. Have you ever noticed how the struggle for love often feels like a battle between your heart and your mind? One part of you knows you deserve more, but another part keeps making excuses, clinging to hope, waiting for change, believing that if you just hold on a little longer, the story will end differently. But history, philosophy, and even spiritual traditions tell us otherwise. The cycle of attachment and avoidance is not new. It's an age-old pattern, and wisdom across cultures has already given us the answers we refuse to see. Confucius taught that harmony in relationships is built on mutual respect. When one person constantly takes and the other constantly gives, that is not balance, that is erosion. Laozi, the great Taoist sage, spoke of Wu Wei, the art of effortless flow. When you are forcing something, forcing love, forcing connection, forcing someone to see your worth, it is a sign that you are moving against the natural rhythm of life. Real love does not need to be pushed into existence. Gautama Buddha's teachings on attachment remind us that clinging to something that does not nourish us only leads to suffering. He taught that detachment is not about rejection or coldness. It is about seeing reality as it is, rather than as we wish it to be. If you have to constantly fight for someone's love, are you truly in a relationship with them, or are you in a relationship with the idea of them? Zoroaster, the ancient Persian prophet, spoke of the eternal battle between light and darkness, not as external forces, but as something that exists within us. The war between wanting to be loved and knowing we must walk away is one of the greatest internal struggles. But the real battle is not with the other person. It is with our own fear of being alone. Adi Shankaracharya, the great non-dualist philosopher, taught that true love and self-respect are not separate. They are one. The moment you compromise your dignity for the sake of another's affection, you are no longer experiencing love, but self-abandonment. Thomas Aquinas, rooted in both philosophy and faith, argued that rationality and love must coexist. A love that forces you to lose your sense of self is neither rational nor divine. Meister Eckhart, the Christian mystic, spoke of surrender, not to another person, but to truth. And the truth is this: the love you are chasing should never have to be chased at all. In the Book of Not Knowing, Peter Ralston challenges the way we define reality. He suggests that much of what we suffer from is not actual loss, but the loss of illusion. When you let go of someone who was never truly present, what have you really lost? Only the fantasy of what could have been. And in that realization, freedom begins. The wisdom of the past and the insights of today tell us the same thing. When love requires you to suffer, it is not love. When you have to beg for it, it is not love. And when it keeps you feeling small, it is not love. The path forward is not about waiting for someone to change. It is about recognizing that the love you truly deserve will never require you to convince someone of your worth. The energetics of love and detachment. Have you ever walked into a room and instantly felt the energy shift? Maybe you've been around someone who drained you, or perhaps you've experienced the opposite, someone whose presence made you feel lighter, freer, at peace. Love works the same way. It's not just words or actions, it's energy. And when you're trapped in an avoidant relationship, that energy is constantly out of sync. Every interaction between two people is an exchange of vibrational energy. If you're pouring love, attention, and care into someone who responds with distance or inconsistency, it creates an energetic imbalance. You are constantly reaching while they are retreating. And over time, this drains your life force. You begin to feel exhausted, not just emotionally, but physically. That's because love, at its core, is an energetic force, and when that force is not reciprocated, it leaves you depleted. Krishnamurti, a philosopher who explored the nature of human suffering, argued that attachment is a conditioned response. We believe we need another person's presence to feel whole, but in reality, that need is simply a habit of the mind. Swami Vivekananda, one of the greatest spiritual thinkers, taught that true love is never about possession. It is about inner strength. If a relationship weakens you, makes you question yourself, or leaves you anxious, then it is not love. It is an energetic drain. Ram Dass spoke of unconditional love as a state of being, not a transaction. When we love someone who does not fully love us back, we must ask ourselves, is our love truly unconditional? Or are we secretly hoping that by loving harder, we will finally be chosen? Paulo Coelho, in his Reflections on Love, describes the heart as something that must remain open, but not at the expense of its own well-being. Thich Nhat Hanh, the Buddhist monk, emphasized mindful breathing as a tool for emotional clarity. He believed that the breath is a bridge between the conscious and the unconscious. When we are anxious, clinging, or fearful in love, our breath becomes shallow. But when we detach, when we surrender, our breath deepens. It is in this state of presence that we find true peace. The Dalai Lama teaches that compassion must include the self. It is not noble to stay in a relationship that makes you suffer. It is not selfless to keep giving when you are receiving nothing in return. Even St. Augustine, who spoke of divine love, warned against attachments that pull us away from our higher self. In the Book of Not Knowing, Peter Ralston explores how energy moves when we let go. He suggests that the very act of releasing attachment creates a space for something new, something more aligned with our true nature. When we stop clinging, we allow love to flow where it is meant to, instead of where we are forcing it to stay. Energy does not lie. If a relationship constantly makes you feel anxious, drained, or uncertain, it is a sign that your energy is being misdirected. True love does not deplete, it restores. It does not create fear, it creates freedom. And the moment you recognize this, you begin the process of reclaiming not just your heart, but your power. Rewriting the narrative of self-worth. When did you first learn that love had to be earned? Was it in childhood, when affection came with conditions? Was it in past relationships, where inconsistency made you feel like you had to prove your value? Or was it simply through a world that teaches us to measure our worth through the eyes of others? The way we love is often shaped long before we even realize it. If you find yourself attached to an avoidant partner, someone who gives just enough to keep you hoping, but never enough to make you feel secure, it is not just about them. It is about a deeper story you've been carrying. A story that tells you love must be fought for, that being chosen is a victory, and that walking away means failure. But none of that is true. The real failure is in abandoning yourself for the sake of someone who does not see your full worth. Immanuel Kant, one of the great philosophers of human dignity, argued that every person has an inherent value that does not depend on external validation. Your worth is not something to be negotiated, reduced, or questioned. If someone's love makes you feel like you must constantly prove yourself, then it is not love. It is an emotional transaction, and you are paying the price with your own self-respect. Neil Donald Walsh, in his Reflections on Spiritual Growth, describes a dialogue with the divine in which we are reminded that our worth is not conditional. The universe, God, or whatever force you believe in does not ask you to beg for love. It asks you to recognize that you are love. James Redfield speaks of synchronicity, the idea that life unfolds in meaningful ways when we align with our true self. If a relationship feels like a battle, perhaps the real message is that it is time to step away and reclaim your path. Doreen Virtue and Louise Hay, both known for their work on self-healing, emphasize that the words we tell ourselves shape our reality. If your inner dialogue is filled with thoughts like, I am not enough, I just need to be more patient, I just need to try harder, you are reinforcing a belief system that keeps you trapped. But if you shift that dialogue, if you begin telling yourself, I am worthy of a love that is freely given, I am not responsible for fixing someone else's fears, I deserve peace, everything begins to change. Wayne Dyer, a master of mindset transformation, once said that when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. If you start seeing yourself as whole instead of someone waiting to be completed by another, you will stop settling for half-hearted love. Esther Hicks, through her teachings on deliberate creation, reminds us that the energy we hold within us attracts the experiences we receive. The moment you stop accepting less, you create space for something more. In the Book of Not Knowing, Peter Ralston challenges the idea of identity itself. He suggests that we are not the labels or stories we have been given. We are something far beyond them. If you let go of the belief that love is something to be won, what might you discover about yourself? Who are you beyond the longing, beyond the waiting, beyond the need to be chosen? The truth is, you were never meant to be in a love that makes you question your worth. And the moment you stop measuring yourself through the lens of someone else's inconsistency, you begin to write a new story. A story where you are enough, not because someone finally sees it, but because you finally do. Overcoming the ghosts of the past. Why is it that even after an avoidant partner pulls away, their presence lingers in your mind? Why do you still replay conversations, wonder what you could have done differently, and feel the ache of their absence, even when they were never truly present to begin with? It's because what you are mourning is not just them. You are mourning the potential of what could have been. You are haunted by the idea of love rather than the reality of what you actually experienced. Rhonda Byrne, in her exploration of the law of attraction, explains that our energy is tied to where we place our focus. When we constantly revisit old wounds, we unknowingly invite them to stay. It is not the person you are attached to. It is the emotional imprint they left behind. And just like a ghost, that imprint feeds on your attention. The more you analyze, revisit, and try to make sense of their actions, the more power you give to a story that is no longer meant to be yours. Brian Weiss, a psychiatrist who studied past life regression, suggests that certain relationships carry karmic patterns. Sometimes the intensity of our longing is not about the person in front of us, but about a deeper lesson our soul is trying to learn. If you have found yourself repeatedly drawn to unavailable partners, ask yourself, what am I truly seeking? Is it love or is it validation? Is it connection or is it a familiar pain you've mistaken for passion? Michael Newton, who explored the journey of the soul, believed that some relationships enter our lives not to stay, but to wake us up. What if this heartbreak was never about loss, but about revelation? What if this person came into your life not to love you forever, but to show you the parts of yourself that still need healing? Edgar Cayce, known for his intuitive insights, spoke of emotional ties as energetic cords. The longer you hold on to resentment, longing, or unanswered questions, the stronger those cords become. But the moment you decide to let go, not just physically, but emotionally, you begin to reclaim your power. Sylvia Brown, who studied the spiritual process of forgiveness, reminds us that release is not about excusing someone's actions. It is about freeing yourself from the weight of carrying them in your heart. John Edward, a renowned medium, speaks of unresolved emotions as echoes that keep us tethered to the past. And this is where true healing begins, in recognizing that you do not need closure from them. Closure is not something they give you. It is something you create within yourself. In the Book of Not Knowing, Peter Ralston uses a powerful metaphor. We spend so much time gripping on to the past, yet we fail to see that what we are holding on to is already gone. The only way to move forward is to loosen your grip and allow space for something new. The ghost of an avoidant partner does not disappear because time passes. It disappears the moment you stop feeding it. When you stop waiting for an explanation, when you stop hoping they will return as someone new, when you stop believing that their inability to love you fully was a reflection of your worth. The past only holds power if you continue to give it a place in your present. But you are not meant to live in the shadow of what was. You are meant to step fully into what can be. The logic of letting go. If love is supposed to feel good, why does letting go feel so impossible? Why does it seem like walking away from someone who cannot love you fully is harder than staying in the pain of their distance? The answer is not just emotional, it's psychological. The mind craves certainty, even if that certainty comes from suffering. The known pain of an avoidant partner feels safer than the unknown freedom of detachment. But logic tells us something different. If holding on only brings suffering, then true relief can only come from release. Raymond Moody, known for his work on near-death experiences, found that those who have come close to death often describe a profound sense of clarity. When faced with the possibility of losing everything, they realize how much time they have wasted clinging to what never truly fulfilled them. Imagine yourself at the end of your life, looking back at this moment. Will you wish you had held on longer, or will you wish you had freed yourself sooner? Bruce Goldberg, a pioneer in emotional healing, suggests that the human mind resists change, not because it is painful, but because it is unfamiliar. When you have spent so much time convincing yourself that this person is the source of your happiness, detaching from them feels like severing a part of yourself. But here's the truth. They were never the source of your happiness. They were the source of your longing, and longing is not the same as love. Robert Monroe, who studied out-of-body experiences, described how stepping outside of oneself provides an entirely new perspective. What if, for a moment, you could view your relationship from a distance, as if it belonged to someone else? Would you tell a friend to stay in something that makes them feel unworthy? Would you tell them that suffering is the price of love? If the answer is no, then why do you accept it for yourself? Ian Stevenson, a researcher on reincarnation, found that patterns often repeat across lifetimes until they are broken. Whether or not you believe in past lives, the concept applies to this moment. If you do not break the cycle now, if you do not choose yourself this time, what will stop you from repeating this pattern again? Friedrich Nietzsche's concept of amor fati, the love of one's fate, suggests that true freedom comes not from resistance, but from acceptance. Accepting that this person was never meant to be yours in the way you hoped. Accepting that you deserve a love that does not require suffering. Accepting that letting go is not loss, it is liberation. René Descartes, the father of rational thought, taught that doubt is the beginning of wisdom. If you have spent months, maybe even years, doubting whether this person truly values you, then that doubt itself is the answer. David Hume, a philosopher of skepticism, reminds us that we should not believe in illusions simply because they are comforting. And isn't that what this is? The illusion that one day they will wake up and love you the way you have loved them? In the Book of Not Knowing, Peter Ralston challenges us to question everything, even the beliefs we hold most tightly. If you let go of the idea that this love is necessary for your happiness, what else might be possible for you? If you stop chasing something that has only brought you pain, what might you discover about yourself? Letting go is not an act of weakness. It is an act of courage. It is a choice to stop arguing with reality, a choice to stop believing that suffering is a sign of devotion, a choice to stop waiting for someone to become who you need them to be, and instead to become the person you were always meant to be. The logic is clear. Now, the only question left is, will you listen? Embracing new philosophical paradigms. If the love you were taught to believe in only brings you pain, is it time to question the very foundation of what you think love is? So many of us have been conditioned to see love as sacrifice, as something we must endure, something we must prove ourselves worthy of. But what if that belief itself is the reason we suffer? What if love was never meant to be a pursuit, but a state of being? John Locke, the philosopher of self-ownership, argued that every individual has the right to their own body, their own mind, and their own happiness. If love makes you feel like you are losing yourself, then it is not love. It is a violation of your own sovereignty. You do not exist to be someone's emotional afterthought. You do not exist to endlessly give while receiving only fragments in return. Baruch Spinoza saw emotions not as mystical forces, but as natural laws. He believed that when we understand the root of our emotions, we stop being controlled by them. If love has become a source of suffering, then it is not love that is hurting you. It is your resistance to the truth that this person was never fully available, the truth that their inconsistency was not a challenge for you to overcome, but a reality for you to accept. Jean-Paul Sartre, the existentialist, spoke of radical freedom, the idea that we are not bound by our past or by what others have done to us. You may have spent years chasing unavailable love, but the moment you decide to stop, you rewrite your entire story. Simone de Beauvoir, in her work on gender and relationships, exposed how society conditions people, especially women, to believe that love should be their ultimate purpose. But real purpose comes from within, not from being chosen by someone else. Mahatma Gandhi, who led movements through nonviolence, taught that resistance does not always mean fighting. It can mean stepping away. If a relationship requires you to battle for love, then perhaps the most powerful act of resistance is to refuse to fight for something that should have been freely given. Martin Luther King Jr., in his teachings on justice, spoke of dignity. And dignity means refusing to accept a love that makes you feel unworthy. Jean-Jacques Rousseau, who believed in the natural state of humanity, argued that true freedom comes from embracing who we truly are, without seeking validation from the world. If love has made you feel small, if it has made you question your own value, then it is not love. It is conditioning. In the Book of Not Knowing, Peter Ralston challenges us to question every belief we have inherited. He argues that freedom is not just about changing circumstances, but about changing the way we see those circumstances. What if the greatest act of self-love is not in waiting for someone to realize your worth, but in realizing it yourself? The world has told you that love means sacrifice, that love means holding on, that love means proving yourself. But what if love, in its purest form, is simply the space where you are seen, valued, and at peace? What if real love does not demand suffering? What if it has been waiting for you all along, not in someone else, but in yourself? The transformative power of releasing guilt. Why is it that even when we know a relationship is hurting us, we still feel guilty for leaving? Why do we second-guess ourselves, wondering if we should have tried harder, been more patient, given them just a little more time? This is the trap of guilt, the invisible chain that keeps us tethered to relationships that no longer serve us. But guilt is not love. It is not proof of devotion. It is merely the weight of expectations, yours, theirs, or society's, pressing down on your heart, making you feel responsible for someone else's emotional journey. Friedrich Hegel, in his philosophy of dialectics, argued that every transformation comes from tension. There is always a battle between what we were and what we are becoming. Guilt is part of that battle. It whispers that leaving is selfish, that detaching means you never truly love them. But what if guilt is not a sign that you are doing something wrong? What if it is merely a sign that you are shedding an old identity, the one that believed your love had to be earned through suffering? Jean Piaget, who studied human development, found that our earliest experiences shape how we approach relationships. If love in your past came with expectations, if you had to be good to receive affection, if you had to put others before yourself to be valued, then guilt becomes a reflex. It convinces you that choosing yourself is wrong. But Erich Fromm, in The Art of Loving, reminds us that real love is an act of freedom, not obligation. If guilt is the only thing keeping you in a relationship, then what you are experiencing is not love, but emotional conditioning. Hannah Arendt, in her Reflections on Personal Responsibility, described how guilt can become a prison of the mind. We replay our choices. We punish ourselves for what we could have done differently. But what if you shift the perspective? What if instead of asking, "Did I leave too soon?" you ask, "What would have happened if I stayed?" Would more time have changed their ability to love you? Or would it have simply delayed your own healing? In the book of Not Knowing, Peter Ralston challenges us to let go of the stories we tell ourselves. He suggests that much of our suffering comes from the belief that we must justify every decision, that we must explain why we walked away. But true freedom does not require an explanation. You do not need permission to choose yourself. You do not need to convince anyone that you made the right choice. Guilt is a shadow. It exists only as long as you allow it to follow you. The moment you release the idea that you are responsible for someone else's emotional growth, the weight lifts. The truth is, you were never meant to carry this burden. You were never meant to sacrifice yourself in the hopes that one day they would realize your worth. Love is not proven through suffering. It is not measured by how much you endure. It is reflected in how much peace you feel within it. And if peace is something you never had in this relationship, then guilt has no place in your healing. The past cannot be changed, but the way you carry it can. And when you finally put down the weight of guilt, you will realize that you were never truly walking away from love. You were walking toward it, toward the love that has been waiting for you all along, the love that starts with yourself. The liberation found in letting go. If love was meant to bring joy, why has this journey felt so heavy? Why does stepping away from someone who cannot fully love you feel like both a loss and a victory? Perhaps the answer is not in love itself, but in the way we have been taught to hold on, taught that letting go is failure, that detachment is cold, that leaving means we gave up too soon. But what if letting go is not the end of love, but the beginning of something far greater? The great spiritual texts have always pointed toward a deeper truth. Real love does not bind. It frees. The Bible speaks of love as patient and kind, but never as something that diminishes the soul. The Quran reminds us that there is no compulsion in love, that what is meant for us will never require force. The Buddhist sutras teach that attachment leads to suffering, not because love is wrong, but because clinging to something that resists us causes unnecessary pain. The Upanishads describe the self as already whole, already complete, and that no external force, no partner, no relationship can grant us the peace we must first find within. The Tao Te Ching, the wisdom of Laozi, teaches the power of flow, of releasing what no longer aligns with our spirit. When you let go of what you are, you become what you might be. What if the act of detachment is not about loss, but about allowing yourself to grow into the person you were always meant to be? The ancient Hermetic teachings speak of the unseen forces that shape our emotional lives. The Kybalion describes how our inner reality creates our external experience. If you continue to carry the weight of this relationship, if you continue to define yourself through the lens of their avoidance, you will remain trapped in a cycle of longing. But the moment you release it, the moment you decide that your peace matters more than their potential, you break the spell. You reclaim yourself. True detachment is not about shutting down your heart. It is about opening it to yourself, to new experiences, to love that does not make you beg. It is not about becoming indifferent, but about seeing clearly. Love is not meant to be a struggle. It is not meant to be a test of endurance. It is meant to be a space where you are valued effortlessly, where you are at peace simply by being. So now, the choice is yours. You can keep waiting, hoping they will change, hoping they will wake up and finally love you the way you deserve. Or you can step forward into a life where love is no longer a battle, where your worth is no longer tied to someone else's fears. You can reclaim the energy you have spent trying to be enough for someone who was never ready. You can write a new story, one where love feels like freedom, not like longing. Take a breath. Feel the weight lift. The moment you stop chasing love is the moment it finally finds you, not in someone else, but in yourself. And that is the love that will never leave you.